G'day guys, welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be unlocking the full potential out of the TB48. So for those that don't know, the TB48s have a couple of little restrictions on them from factory, depending on the year model. Ours is a 2006, which means we have a factory limiter restriction. So it won't actually hit limiter, it'll sort of just rev out to around 6 grand. It sounds pretty shit, especially comparing that to what these things are capable of. For those that have been following for a while, you would have seen my old ute, or it was a wagon chopped into a ute. That was a TB48, and that had a limiter from factory because it was a 2005, but it was just the factory soft cut limiter, so it was still sounded good, but there is a way to get even more out of these by doing a hard cut limiter, playing with the fueling and the timing, all that sort of stuff, and you can do it all remotely from your home. So the way you can do that is through a guy called Brad Smith, who does the tunes remotely from Tasmania. So his company is called Tidy Tuning. I used him for my old black one, and we are going to be using him again for this one. He has come a long way since then. He has now figured out how to do the hard cut, which I never had on my black one. So you will see at the end of this video how much better it sounds. You get all the flames, cracks, pops, all that sort of stuff. And you can adjust it if you want it faster, slower, if you want bigger flames, small flames, all that sort of stuff. You obviously have more risk of sort of damaging your oil pump gears. So I do recommend, if you are going to do this, to get some billet oil pump gears. We have some, we haven't put them in yet, but we are going to be doing it before we sit on limiter too often. So I'll just be showing you guys the process and what you go through, basically what you need to buy, how it is all done, show you how you literally don't even have to leave your driveway to get this done, and then we'll do some videos in the car at the end showing you guys how it sounds, how it drives, any noticeable differences with fueling in terms of economy. Even the auto usually feels a bit better because you can play with that a little bit as well. So if yours is an auto, you might get some gains there as well. Overall, you probably won't see like much in horsepower gains. Slightly, depending on if you do the premium fuel or not. You can get it tuned to 95, 98, which is what we're opting for. But if you are going to be doing a lot of remote driving where you might not get access to that, then maybe you just stick to the 91 fuel tune. Either way, it is definitely worth doing. I believe the price ranges from like $500 to $700. Don't quote me on that because it has changed since a few other things have changed and costs have obviously evolved over time, but yeah, definitely worth it regardless. Saves you from driving to a tuner and dealing with all that. But yeah, stay tuned. So this is everything that Brad sent down from Tasmania. So this is the main thing you'll need, which is the NDS scan tool that plugs into the laptop. And then this is the wideband kit that he sent down, but he doesn't usually do this. This is just because I've worked with him a heap, so he trusted me to send this up to get a better reading and a better tune. So I'm gonna bolt this to the end of the exhaust, cable tie all this up through the window so I can run it to the laptop inside. And then this just plugs from your OBD2 into the laptop and then run the program on the laptop. So must be a Windows laptop, and I'm pretty much just gonna keep this under the driver's seat so I can always diagnose problems and stuff. So we're about to go for a quick little test lap, get the air fuel ratio, then we can send it to Brad and he can start up the first bass tune. Before we get started too, I'll give you an update on the exhaust. So in the last video you would have seen that we did the extractors, then the muffler, and I had it dumped. And I've just added in this pacemaker resonator and made up some brackets, so it's a lot nicer note now. And I've just bolted in that wideband kit, got it running up here, about to cable tie it to the lower control arm, and then just running it up into the window. So we're about to go for a first drive now. Okay, so we've just been to the servo, made sure it's got plenty of 98 in it because we will also be tuning it to 98 specifically. And then we're testing out the new diff gears with the 37s, and it's going really good. So now what Brad's asked me to do is, with that wideband kit, got it plugged in, I've got it running to the SIG socket in the car, and you can see the number it's reading currently. So it's at 14.7, 15, it's constantly changing. And so I'm going to go to a back road, and then essentially I've just got to put it in second gear. So put it across to Tiptronic, lock it into second gear, and then do a a second gear pull from around 3 grand to 5 grand, and then send him a video of that, and he can then make a custom tune to suit that. So obviously if you have your air fuel ratio, which is what this does, that's going to allow you to get a much more accurate tune. So I'm going to go do that now, and I'll also film a clip of the rev limiter at the moment, because these newer models, they actually just don't have a limiter, they just rev out, same as a diesel. So that's why we really need this tune, so we can get a hard cut limmy. Alright, so we just pulled over on a quiet road. I'm just going to quickly show you the factory rev limiter and then compare it to the hard cut. Back home now, the run went good, and now we're ready for the tune. So the first step, I've got to take this engine cover off, so just a couple of 10mm bolts, and then we can get access to the coil loom as well as the cam sensor, to send him some pictures of that as well. So the engine cover's off, and I just sent Brad a photo of the cam position bolts. So basically these 2 bolts there and there, if you loosen them and adjust the cam position sensor, that's to do with obviously your cam position. So I sent him the photo, but he was happy with mine, so I don't have to make any changes there, and I still just need access to the coil loom. So that's why that's off. And he also provided me with a 20 amp fuse, which you may need to get one if you don't have one. So yeah, when you do your hard cut limiter, you need to get that fuse, because all the coils draw current at exactly the same time on resume, so it blows the 15 amp fuse from factory. So you just upgrade it to a 20 amp, but he does recommend being very careful and being mindful that that's a modification you sort of got to do at your own risk, because obviously you're not really meant to go up in a fuse size, but it's only up by 5 amps, and I've always got a fire extinguisher on board. Alright, we are now in the driveway. We've got the car ignition on, we've got the OBD2 plug in, running over to the laptop. Got my phone up with Brad, and I'm basically just sending thumbs up every time he asks me to do something. And you can see I'm currently not touching anything, and he is able to remotely access my laptop and start running programs. So it's pretty cool. So you can see he's got the NDS2, which is the Nissan data scan tool app, and he can start logging stuff. So I'm just going to let him do his thing, keep an eye on my phone. He might need me to unplug some coil packs or change some stuff, or to keep turning the car on and off basically, and then I'll update you guys once it's done. So it's a pretty simple service, but definitely worth the money and the very minimal effort when you don't even have to leave your driveway. Alrighty guys, we are back inside now. The tune is all done. Very happy with how it went. Super simple. Basically at the end there, Brad just got me to undo the coil pack loom. He did a couple of things, and then once he was ready, he told me to plug it back in. Then he loaded up everything he had to do, and I was good to go. So we have been on a test drive, and it sounds mint, but before I actually get into all the clips of how it sounds, how it drives, all that, I do have a few questions that I chucked up on my Instagram to answer. So I'll read some of them now. So the first one being, was it hard and how long did it take? So as you would have seen in this video, the whole process is super simple. I think it maybe took an hour max, and that was with me setting up some extra stuff and with the filming and all of it. So yeah, it's very easy to do, all in your driveway at home. Second question, how does it work? ECU exchange or what? No, so it is all just remote tuned, and you don't need to send your ECU away or touch your ECU at all. It's all done through the OBD2 port through Nissan data scan program. So the things you'll need is that cable, which goes from OBD2 to the USB, a Windows laptop, and the actual program itself. And then other than that, it's super simple. So if you message Brad through Tidy Tuning on either Instagram or Facebook, and you're keen to go ahead with the tune, he'll send you through a long message basically outlining everything that you have to order and what's involved, the risks involved, all that. He basically just has to cover his ass, because if anything was to happen down the track that's unrelated to the tune, he doesn't want it coming back and you trying to blame him. So I've had no issues in the past with the tune I had on my old black GU, and I ran that for probably 2 years, and that copped a lot of abuse. So that's why I'm doing it again on this car, because I'm not worried about it at all, and it's definitely worth it. Another question was, I'm not worried about fuel economy, but if any, did it affect it at all? No, not really. It's hard to say because we did the 37s and the 4.6 diff centers at the same time. So, I mean, our fuel actually isn't too bad at the moment. It is obviously reading a little bit out on the odometer because of the diffs still haven't made it 100% accurate, but we seem to still be getting around 17 to 18 litres per 100, which we're pretty happy with. So whether the tune made it a little bit better, we're unsure. I'm sure it probably helped the tiniest bit, but because it's NA, you're really not going to see major horsepower gains or fuel gains or anything like that. The main things I've sort of noticed are just nicer shifts in the auto, and then obviously the gains of being able to have a hard cut limiter and cool stuff like that. Okay, next question here is, what was the health check process prior to the tune and what difference did you notice? So with the health check, I guess, this motor was super healthy beforehand. I didn't do a compression test or anything like that, but the motor was unmolested. Obviously it's had a good service history. It's basically been grandpa owned since day dot. So we weren't too worried about that. There was no weird noises or anything, and it's only got 200,000 kilometers. I would suggest if you have had your car, your TB48 ran on gas or it's higher kilometers, maybe just make sure the motor's still running relatively healthy before you go, and obviously overload it a bit more, because putting the hard cut tune on it will obviously put a bit more stress on the motor, and it's also going to make it more likely that you're going to abuse the car more because you're going to put that foot down a bit harder to hear the nice sound. So yeah, in the long run, it's definitely worth making sure the motor you're investing in is healthy. The last question I'll be answering is just related to the oil pump gears. So he basically has just asked how the stock oil pump gears go with this sort of tune. Now, we do currently have the stock ones in still, and well, touch wood, fingers crossed, we haven't blown the motor yet. It has obviously copped a bit of limiter, as you will see in the clips coming up, but we do actually have a set here. So this is the set from High Speed Engineering, which we got through Dubai Performance. He's on Instagram and online, and we will be chucking this in the next week or so. We have the 4-wheel drive show coming up soon, where we'll be going down to Victoria, doing the high country for a couple of weeks, and I'm sure the car will see a little bit of limiter here and there. So we want to get these in as soon as possible. It's definitely worth doing. Obviously, if you have a soft cut, it's not going to put as much pressure on those oil pump gears, but with an aggressive hard cut limiter like the one we've got here, all those pops and bangs is definitely going to put a lot of stress on the factory ones. So it is definitely worth, these are only I think $500, $600 and could save the motor. So, and these TB48 motors are pretty hard to come by and they are not cheap. So yeah, it's pretty much cheap insurance and allows you to sit on that limiter a little bit longer. Alright, that's going to be enough for the questions and answers. I don't want to bore you for too long. I'll let you guys watch the clips now of how it sounds, how it drives, and hopefully you enjoy. Cheers.